I married the same woman 9 times. And my wife, for the sake of her white moonlight, the seemingly unattainable first love, divorced me 9 times. The first time we divorced, shattered and raging, I threw all her luggage out of the house. Suitcases tumbled down the steps, their contents spilling onto the wet pavement, mirroring the chaotic wreckage of my heart. The fourth time, I swallowed my pride and begged her to leave her bags, terrified that if they left, she would never truly return. The weight of that desperation settled heavy in my chest. By the 8th divorce, I had learned to quietly pack for her myself, meticulously folding her clothes, dreading even the slightest chance of incurring her displeasure. My hands moved with a practiced, sterile efficiency that felt utterly foreign. My breakdowns, my pleas, my docile obedience. Each time, they were met only with her unwavering promise. The promise of our next, inevitable remarriage, and the subsequent divorce. Until this time. This time, I packed my own bags and left alone. But I didn't tell her that in 1 month, I would be leaving completely. Leaving the city, leaving the country, leaving everything behind. We'll remarry in a month. Serafina, CEO of a nationally renowned corporation, took the divorce papers with practiced ease, her voice smooth as she offered words meant to soothe me. The rustle of the paper was the only sound in the tense silence. As I signed, my heart was utterly calm, a flat, empty plain. I felt no urge, no need, no anything to respond to her statement. It was just another line in a script I knew by heart. Arthur. Her brow furrowed, a hint of impatience flickering in her eyes. She seemed displeased by my silence and repeated my name, sharper this time. Oh, right. I paused in gathering my few remaining items, turning back to face her with a weariness that went bone deep. The apartment suddenly felt vast and empty, echoing with phantom arguments and hollow laughter. Serafina was known for keeping her word. Every time we divorced, she would specify the date of our next remarriage. It was a bizarre ritual, a scheduled heartbreak and tentative mending. She had only ever truly lied to me once. It was on our wedding day. She held me close, her eyes shimmering with tears, and whispered, "Marrying you, I never want to be apart again." The memory still stung, a cruel irony. Indeed, women could lie. Or perhaps, this woman could lie. My quiet compliance seemed to surprise her. In the past, after signing the papers, I would spiral into a frantic state, clinging to her, pleading desperately for her not to go, or at least not to leave for long. "So, I suppose I'll move out again this time," Serafina began, carefully choosing her words, perhaps bracing herself for my usual reaction. But I cut her off, the words coming out flat and decisive. "No need. I'll move out. My bags are pretty much packed." A look of genuine astonishment crossed her face, wiping away the practiced calm. The subtle shift was almost comical in its unexpectedness. The first time we divorced, I was a wreck, tossing her things out in a fit of heartbroken rage. The fourth time, I pleaded with her to leave her luggage, terrified her departure would be final. By the 8th divorce, I had become meek, carefully packing for her myself, utterly afraid of upsetting her, of breaking this fragile cycle that was, paradoxically, all I had. My raw despair, my desperate pleas, my quiet compliance. Each time, exchanged only for her faithful promise. And the next, just as inevitable, divorce. 3 days prior, Serafina had given me a gift. It wasn't expensive, not by her standards anyway, but it was thoughtful. It was a watch I had admired for ages, a specific model I'd mentioned in passing years ago. I forced a smile, but my heart was heavy with a familiar ache. Sweetness in this marriage was rare, and any small kindness she offered always seemed to precede an impending blow, a prelude to more pain. That night, sleep eluded me. Tossing and turning, I finally grabbed my phone, checking it covertly beside her sleeping form. Pinned at the top of my messages was her white moonlight, Julian. "I'm coming back." That one simple message from Julian was the death knell for my 9th marriage to Serafina. It was a fate I had sensed but hoped against hope wouldn't arrive. Scrolling down, I opened another chat, a conversation between Serafina and her best friend. "Arthur is really good. Don't divorce him this time. Didn't you say you'd forget Julian?" Serafina's reply was stark and concise. "I tried. I can't forget." The tangled knot of pain that had tightened in my chest over countless lonely nights finally, in that instant, began to loosen, replaced by a strange sense of clarity. Shaking my head, I pulled myself back from the suffocating weight of memory. Under Serafina's unexpectedly deep gaze, I finished packing. I lifted my suitcase, the weight oddly comforting, and planned my quiet exit from the city. From behind me, Serafina's voice cut through the air, formal and measured, like a business decree. Arthur, we'll remarry in a month. I didn't reply aloud. I simply raised my hand in a gesture that said, I know. What a coincidence. My plane ticket abroad. It was booked for exactly 1 month from now. After moving out, I settled into the apartment my parents had left me. It was quiet, small, a stark contrast to the luxurious home I had shared with Serafina. Just like after every previous divorce, Serafina didn't reach out. Not once. 20 days remained before my departure. One afternoon, I was browsing a shopping mall with my best friend, Daniel. He was the only one in our circle who knew the repetitive, bizarre truth of my marriages and divorces. Daniel, after a few minutes of casual chatting and indirectly complaining about Serafina, lowered his voice slightly. Hey, I saw a post on her social media. Serafina and Julian are traveling together. I felt a flicker of something, but it quickly faded. I remained silent, remembering how, after past divorces, I would masochistically refresh Serafina and Julian's social media feeds, searching for confirmation of my worst fears, twisting the knife in my own wound. This time, I hadn't. Seeing my quiet response, Daniel asked with concern, So, you guys divorced again? Yeah, divorced. Daniel sighed, launching into a familiar litany of comforting words. I smiled faintly, about to share the news of my impending departure, the radical, hopeful plan I had finally made. But before I could speak, we unexpectedly bumped into Serafina at the entrance of a jewelry store. Arthur. The name left her lips reflexively, a sound that still held a strange pull. Julian stood beside her, his hand clasped around hers, offering me a polite, almost smug, nod. Arthur, looking at watches too? He was undeniably handsome. I could see why he was her white moonlight, that idealized figure she could never quite shake. In every past encounter like this, my gaze would fix on Julian, sharp with resentment, seeing him as the thief of my happiness. Serafina would sense the tension, stepping slightly in front of him, subtly shielding him with her body. This time was different. I restrained Daniel, who had tensed beside me, ready to intervene. I simply smiled back at Julian. Yeah, something like that. Celebrating some good news. Buying myself a gift. Daniel, never one to miss an opportunity for a well-aimed jab, added smoothly. Exactly. Celebrating the divorce, getting rid of, well, you know. And looks like someone else is picking up the slack. Wouldn't you call that good news? I nudged him with my foot, but inwardly, I gave him a standing ovation. Serafina's lips parted slightly. She watched Daniel and me exchange amused glances, a hint of genuine happiness on my face. She didn't speak. A sharp-eyed sales associate, sensing the awkward dynamic, quickly ushered a colleague over to assist Serafina and Julian, separating us neatly. Daniel leaned, inconspiratorially. She kept glancing over here while she was looking around the store, he murmured. Looked a bit lost in thought. Your ex-wife, is she regretting it? I hummed vaguely, attributing it to a flicker of guilt, nothing more. I'm sorry, sir, but this model is sold out, the sales associate told Daniel, who had been pointing at a picture on his phone. He looked disappointed. My heart gave a small, unexpected jolt. The watch Daniel wanted was strikingly familiar. It was the exact same model Serafina had given me just 3 days before our 9th divorce. In the past, every small kindness, every gift from Serafina would have been a treasure, something I cherished deeply. But this time, I reached into my bag, pulled out a simple necklace I had been considering buying for myself, and handed it to Daniel. Here, take this. Consider it a gift. Just then, Serafina and Julian walked past us. It might have been my imagination, but I thought I saw Serafina turn her head, her brow furrowed delicately, glancing repeatedly at the watch picture Daniel still held. Daniel started to refuse, but I pressed the necklace into his hand. It was just a gift someone had given me, a token of fleeting warmth that no longer held significance. The person who gave it? She was just my ex-wife now. I had assumed that meeting at the mall would be my last encounter with Serafina, but with only 10 days left until my departure, I submitted my resignation to my boss. That evening, feeling a strange mix of melancholy and anticipation, I decided to take a walk around the neighborhood. Startled, I froze when a figure emerged from the deep shadows of a large tree. I was about to cry out in surprise, but she spoke first. Arthur, it's me. Serafina stepped fully into the moonlight, her face illuminated, and reached out, her fingers closing tightly around my wrist. I pulled my hand away instinctively, taking a couple of steps back. The sudden distance felt both necessary and oddly painful. She looked down at her empty hand, her expression one of quiet hurt. "How did you know I was here?" "You didn't say you were coming," I said, not bothering to hide the irritation in my voice. "Just passing by," Serafina replied, her eyes reflecting the moonlight like distant stars. "I thought I'd surprise you." I gave a short, humorless laugh. Of course, in the past, Serafina coming to find me, unannounced, would have been an unbelievable, longed-for surprise, a gift from the heavens I constantly prayed for. Under the pale moon, her gaze held a hint of confusion, a question she didn't voice. I sighed, feeling a sudden, potent urge to tell her everything, about the departure, about the finality of it all. But I suppressed the impulse. It would only complicate things, stir up dust I was finally ready to let settle. "Shouldn't you be spending time with Julian?" I asked, trying to keep my tone gentle, rational. "Why are you here?" "Don't want him to get the wrong idea." "The wrong idea about what?" "There's nothing going on between us," Serafina said, a blatant lie that hung in the night air. I sighed again, not bothering to call her out. "Whether there is or isn't, I'm just your ex-husband now." Even after marrying her 9 times, a ridiculous, farcical loop, the current status remained ex-husband. Silence fell between us, thick and heavy. The night wind picked up, carrying my words away, making them feel impossibly distant. After a long moment, Serafina lifted her head, her voice hesitant as she tried to explain. "Divorcing you, it wasn't right." Her gaze pleaded for understanding. But I couldn't let Julian bear the blame, the reputation of being involved with a married woman. I took another step back, frustrated. I couldn't understand. More importantly, I no longer wanted to understand. She claimed innocence with Julian, yet her primary concern was protecting his reputation. Was I just collateral damage, someone whose heart was expendable, someone who deserved to be divorced 9 times? "Ms. Sue always considers things thoroughly," I said, my voice flat, using her formal title, creating a chasm between us. I have nothing to add. I lowered my gaze, unable to look her in the eye any longer. Serafina opened her mouth, perhaps wanting to say more, to argue, to beg. Then, her phone rang. The screen lit up, displaying Julian's name. I looked at the caller ID, a sharp, familiar pang echoing in the hollow space where my heart used to be. "You should probably go be with him," I advised quietly. "Our matters can wait. Or not." She looked at me for a long moment, her eyes searching, before slowly turning away, stepping back into the shadows she'd emerged from, and answering the call. I walked back to the apartment, the cool night air a balm on my skin. I closed the door firmly behind me, the solid click echoing the finality I desperately desired. It was as if I was locking away everything that had just happened and everything that had happened before, locking it all away in the past. Time seemed to accelerate. My work handover was complete, and the date of my departure for abroad drew closer. Without work, and blessedly, without Serafina constantly dominating my emotional landscape, I cut ties with my social circle in Cloud City. Life suddenly felt lighter, unexpectedly peaceful. Only Daniel, my loyal friend, kept in touch, occasionally sharing bits of gossip from the city's intertwined social scene, particularly regarding Serafina and Julian. He told me about the massive fight Serafina and Julian had after our mall encounter, so loud and public that mutual friends had to intervene. He mentioned another instance where Julian had sharply reprimanded Serafina at a banquet, leaving her standing alone in a corner, lost in thought for ages. I listened to it all, detached and emotionless. There was no longer a frantic urge to know, no painful twist in my gut. In the past, news of Serafina and Julian's discord would have been a signal, a desperate call to action for me to beg Serafina to remarry me sooner, to seize the moment of their weakness. But this time, I didn't even feel the need to open her messaging app. Her struggles, her relationship dramas, no longer held any power over me. Even more surprising was that Serafina actually started calling me herself. My consistent refusal to answer, hitting the decline button every time, felt almost brutal, even to Daniel, who was sitting with me one day while I did it. "Is this how it is?" Daniel mused, shaking his head. "The more you push a woman away, the more she clings?" He was half joking, and I nudged him with my foot in response. Daniel sighed again, a genuine sadness in his voice. "Honestly, back then, Serafina was actually pretty good to you." My gaze softened, drifting back into the haze of memory. "I met Serafina when I was in university. She was only 6 years older, a business associate of my parents. When my parents went abroad to expand their business, they entrusted her with looking after me. This woman, famous across Cloud City as a formidable CEO, treated me like a spoiled younger brother. She would rush onto the track when I twisted my ankle during a sports meet, publicly helping me limp away, her arm firm around me. She would call me a stupid little brother when I failed an exam, then patiently pick up the textbooks and tutor me herself, her sharp mind breaking down complex concepts. When I was cheated out of a meager 1,600 yuan from an internship, she used every connection she had, dismantling and ultimately destroying the company that had wronged me. The swiftness and ruthlessness of it were breathtaking. I don't know the exact moment it happened, but somewhere amidst that fierce, protective care, I fell completely in love with the older sister figure who treated me with such fierce devotion. I leaned into that dependency, showering her with open affection and need. Serafina was so used to doting on me, so comfortable in her role as my protector, that she never seemed to notice my feelings deepening beyond sibling affection. Until I formally confessed my love. The beautiful, powerful woman I adored looked at me, her expression shifting through surprise, disbelief, and finally, a deep, weary sigh. "I already have someone I like," she said softly. It was then that I first learned about Julian's existence. A man who, I would later realize with a cruel twist of fate, bore a slight resemblance to me. That crushing, utterly failed confession was the beginning of the tangled, painful 9 years that followed. Julian returned to Cloud City. Serafina and he began a tumultuous relationship, loving, arguing, tearing each other apart, breaking up. One night, comforting a heartbroken, drunk Serafina after another fight with Julian, I, foolishly, confessed my feelings for the second time. She responded with a kiss, gave herself to me that night, and bound our lives together with marriage. Later, Julian returned to Cloud City again, and Serafina asked for our first divorce. The cycle of divorce, remarriage, divorce, remarriage continued, a relentless, maddening rhythm that slowly numbed me. I learned to stop hating Julian and, instead, turn my simmering resentment towards Serafina. If she only saw me as a substitute, a stand-in for Julian, why did she treat me with such overwhelming kindness? Why the doting, the protection, the deep care? And why, on our wedding day, did she make such a tearful, solemn vow never to be apart? If she had felt even a flicker of love for me, why did she inflict such agony with repeated divorces? And if there was no love left at all, what were those repeated remarriages for? Perhaps I should have understood earlier. The bond of marriage she offered? It was likely just a reckless game, a way to provoke Julian, a dramatic gesture born of her complicated feelings for him. Shaking myself out of the painful reverie, I cut off Daniel's rambling. I glanced down at my phone. Tomorrow. I was leaving tomorrow. A lightness bloomed in my chest, a fragile bud of happiness. The identity of ex-husband to Serafina was something I hoped would only last for these final 24 hours. After that, Serafina and I, we would be strangers. To avoid any potential last-minute disruption from Serafina, I decided to move out of the apartment a day early and checked into a hotel. But I never could have predicted who would call me first. It was Julian. My long-standing rival's voice sounded different this time, laced with a strange mix of anger and something unsettlingly like grudging respect. "Arthur, I never realized you were so ruthless with women." I inhaled sharply, a bitter laugh catching in my throat. After years of bending, compromising, and sacrificing myself in the messy drama of his and Serafina's relationship, this was the assessment I received? Ruthless? Someone who knowingly interferes in a marriage has no right to lecture me. I retorted, my voice cold and hard, leaning into the villainous role he was assigning me. "If you don't have anything useful to say, perhaps keep your mouth shut." "I don't know what methods you used," Julian continued, ignoring my barb, "but you definitely won this round. Serafina married you 9 times, and every single time, it was to spite me." He sounded almost petulant. I lowered my head, a familiar ache settling. Yes, I knew. Deep down, I always knew. But so what? As long as I came back, she'd always quietly divorce you. I thought it would be the same this time. But Julian paused, and then he voiced a possibility that I had consciously avoided considering during these past few weeks. But I didn't expect her to argue with me so much this time. "This woman is truly ridiculous. She says she loves me the most." His voice held a note of bewildered frustration. "But she can't fool me. You, her substitute, somehow managed to get into her heart. I didn't fully believe Julian's words. He was prone to dramatic pronouncements, but they left me with a sense of weary contemplation. Still, I couldn't resist a final jab. So, are you scared now? Julian's voice suddenly shifted, morphing into a loud, almost manic laugh. Scared? Arthur, I proposed to Serafina. The sound was jarring, breaking the quiet tension of my hotel room. Take a guess, he continued, his voice dripping with triumph. Did she say yes this time? I sighed, the sound heavy with the weight of past history, and hung up the phone. Julian's place in Serafina's heart was something I had always understood on a visceral level. That year she helped me off the track, I saw a pendant with the character Han engraved on it around her neck. That year she tutored me, the textbooks she used had elaborate covers, each marked with the character Han. That year she brought down the company that cheated me, the investment fund she mobilized was called Qinghan Fund, Serafina Julian Fund. He was woven into the fabric of her life, a persistent shadow over her brilliance, covering my entire youth with his presence. He was her lifelong obsession, her white moonlight she could never escape. That night, knowing deep down that Serafina wouldn't call, I still stared at my phone, sitting on the hotel sofa, watching the screen remain stubbornly dark until dawn. It should have been the day of our 10th wedding, but instead, I was leaving. At 7 in the morning, I took a taxi to the airport. No message from Serafina. I opened her contact in my phone and selected Delete Contact. At 8, I cleared security. No call from Serafina. I opened her number in my call history and selected Block Contact. At 9, I boarded the plane. As the cabin crew bustled around, I began systematically deleting every photo, every message, every scrap of information related to Serafina from my phone. Then my phone rang. It was Daniel. I answered. From the other end of the line, a voice reached me. Serafina's voice, panicked, laced with tears. Arthur, where are you? Daniel's sigh carried faintly over the phone line from a distance. Arthur, man, it wasn't me. She came over and snatched my phone. I could hear Daniel in the background, his voice strained but firm. Serafina, I'm letting this slide because you're my ex-sister-in-law. But if you don't leave, this is trespassing. But Serafina ignored him, repeating her desperate question. Where are you, Arthur? I took a deep breath, exhaling the last remnants of the bitterness and sorrow that had choked me for years. I spoke in a voice I hadn't known I possessed, calm, steady, and utterly devoid of emotion. What is it? Finally marrying Julian, and you're crying from happiness? At my words, her voice became frantic, the sobs intertwining with her panic and confusion. No, I didn't agree to marry him. We were supposed to remarry today, weren't we? Her tone shifted, becoming hesitant, searching, a fragile plea. I froze in my seat, stunned into silence. In all the years I had been with Serafina, she had never humbled herself like this, never pleaded or cried to me. She was the formidable CEO, the older, more experienced woman, always composed, always in control. In my presence, she was forever proud and unyielding. Even in the years when she might have loved me most fiercely, she had only ever extended a warm, but ultimately condescending, hand down to me. This was the first time Serafina Sue had ever spoken to me in a tearful, pleading tone. She knew exactly how to hit my weak spot. She knew exactly what I craved, what my heart ached for, and she knew precisely how to offer it. But she had never been willing to. Julian was this sunlight on the snow of her life, the only one worthy of her temporary surrender, her rare moments of vulnerability. Yet, ultimately, she was too proud to ever truly bow her head to him forever. That was who Serafina was. Was her current display of vulnerability, her tearful plea, a sign that she had finally, truly humbled herself? Or was it merely an instinctive reaction upon realizing that I, too, was capable of letting go, of walking away? I didn't want to know the answer. It didn't matter anymore. All that mattered was finding the words to say goodbye. Her reasons, her feelings, were irrelevant to my path now. I was about to speak, to finally articulate my farewell, but a friendly voice intervened, saving me the trouble of finding the right words. Excuse me, sir, the plane is about to take off. Could you please turn off your phone? The flight attendant's gentle reminder cut through the raw emotion on the call. I gave a small, wry smile. Serafina, I said into the phone, my voice still calm. Did you hear that? I'm leaving. Goodbye. Before she could utter a word, I ended the call. I grabbed my luggage, turned, and walked towards the boarding gate, leaving the past behind. After landing, I immediately got a new phone number. I changed all my social media accounts as well, keeping contact only with Daniel. My mother, seeing me lounging on the sofa day after day, happily absorbed in mobile games, couldn't help but voice her exasperation. Go out and do something. Why are you cooped up in here all day? Haven't you had enough of staying at home after all those years wasted on Serafina? She poked my forehead gently as she scolded me, but her voice was soft, and she placed a plate of freshly cut fruit in front of me. I wrapped my arms around her waist, leaning into her, a smile on my face. Because Mom loves me here, of course. I squeezed her tighter. The reason I could come abroad with such peace of mind is because you're here. My mother had remarried and moved abroad years ago. Before she left, her biggest worry had been me. She knew how unstable my marriage to Serafina was, a never-ending cycle of breaking and remaking. Many times, she had advised me to just let go, not to fixate on one person, that it wasn't worth it. Just like my father, he loved her so much when they were young, but didn't it still end in divorce? Life was short. Experiencing one passionate love was enough. Insisting on forever with one person wasn't realistic, and perhaps not even necessary. Especially not with a woman who clearly didn't want forever with me. Back then, I hadn't understood my mother's words. I always thought Serafina was different. She seemed to fill the void left by my father's absence, giving me all the care and attention I had missed. But later, I realized those moments of care were just Serafina's way of molding me into a version of Julian. A Julian she could love. A Julian who would listen to her. I was so intoxicated by the illusion that she loved me, that I forgot Arthur could only ever be Arthur. Now, finally free from Serafina's influence, I understood my mother's meaning. Thinking of this, I chuckled and said, Mom, can I be your mama's boy forever? She rolled her eyes playfully, but ruffled my hair. You. The peaceful days didn't last long before Daniel called, his voice filled with exasperation. I can't take it anymore. Can Serafina and Julian, those two crazies, just leave me alone? Confused, I asked him what was happening. Daniel explained that after I left the country, Serafina had seemed to lose it. She had moved into the apartment we used to share, barely eating or leaving. Neighbors, worried after seeing her faint on the balcony, called emergency services. When the paramedics contacted her family, they found that the only contact number in her phone was my old, now defunct, number. Unable to reach me, the emergency services contacted the police, who then tracked down Daniel as my only known contact in the city besides Serafina. Daniel, unable to refuse the police summons, had to go to the hospital and deal with the mess. Daniel hadn't told me any of this initially, wanting to spare me the stress of Serafina's drama. It's her own fault, he declared, furious. She drove you away, and now she's putting on a show of being heartbroken? What good is that? Daniel's anger towards Serafina was always swift and direct, but his sudden decision to tell me all this, despite having kept it from me, meant something else must have happened. It's nothing big, really, Daniel said, his initial outburst fading. He clearly didn't want to dwell on it. You're having such a good time abroad. Don't let those two psychos ruin your mood. For Daniel to be pushed to this point, it couldn't be nothing big. I knew he was trying to protect my peace of mind, but I didn't want my friend to suffer because of my failed relationship. Daniel, what happened? He hemmed and hawed for a long time before finally admitting with a sigh of defeat. It's really nothing much. Julian, he came to my place, freaking out, demanding I tell him where you are. He was banging on my door every morning, driving the neighbors crazy. I've had to move into a hotel. Daniel had his own home, yet because of me, he was effectively homeless. Guilt twisted in my gut. Come to Zurich, I told him immediately. Didn't you want to quit your job anyway? That same day, Daniel entrusted his apartment to a real estate agent for rental, including dealing with Julian's disturbances. He quickly processed his visa and bought a plane ticket. A week later, we met at the Zurich airport. My mother's smile widened when she saw Daniel. Oh good. Now that you're here, take him out and show him around. He's been sitting inside so much he's going to grow mushrooms. Daniel, always eager for fun, readily agreed. But I underestimated his speed. In less than 3 days, he knew the city better than I did after being there for half a month. I had no idea how he met so many expatriate Chinese people, but every day he found new events to drag me to, all sorts of social gatherings and parties. I couldn't even keep track of everyone's faces, but Daniel was already calling them brothers and sisters. Any good girls you can introduce to Arthur? he'd loudly proclaim, clapping me on the back. Help him get over his heartbreak. Daniel was tirelessly looking out for me. Someone at a gathering responded, "Oh, that'd have to be Aurora. They can lick each other's wounds, right, Aurora?" Following their gaze, a woman walked towards us from behind the bar. Even in the lively, somewhat decadent atmosphere, her casual attire stood out. "Stop teasing me," she said, a hint of amusement in her voice. "I'm not heartbroken." But the woman they called Aurora turned to me. "But is this young man really suffering from a broken heart?" Her words sent a ripple of teasing laughter through the crowd, Daniel's the loudest among them. Then someone suddenly said, "Oh, hey, this guy looks a bit like Julian, doesn't he, Aurora? What do you think?" My stomach clenched instantly, and my expression turned cold. Daniel immediately bristled, picking up a nearby bottle, ready to lay into the speaker. But what truly shifted the atmosphere in the room was Aurora's reaction. She was undeniably beautiful, but her aura was all-powerful businesswoman. She cast a sharp, icy glance at the person who spoke. "This is the 10th time I've had to explain this. I have absolutely nothing to do with Julian." Her gaze returned to me, softening slightly. "Mentioning this gentleman and Julian in the same breath is really quite insulting." She winked at me. "To apologize on their behalf, would you let me buy you dinner?" I looked into her eyes, assessing her sincerity, and after a moment's thought, I agreed. Over dinner, she told me that she and Julian had gone to the same university. "If I'm not mistaken," she said carefully, choosing her words, "you must be Serafina's ex-husband?" She explained the long-standing misunderstanding. Every time Julian and Serafina fought and he came abroad, he used me as a shield. She shrugged lightly. "I was overseas anyway, so it was impossible for me to explain myself. They wouldn't have believed me even if I tried. They all assumed I was his backup plan, secretly pining for him, but I genuinely didn't like him." She showed me her chat history with Julian, dating back several years. Each message from her was a clear, unambiguous rejection. Julian, on the other hand, used various pleading tones, asking her to play along with his act. When Aurora refused, he would simply take advantage of her absence from China to spread rumors and deceive others. As long as Serafina believed it, that was all he cared about. As a result, Serafina would constantly call and harass Aurora, and those friends who overheard assumed Aurora was deeply heartbroken over Julian. The conversation logs, spanning years and including emails from even before I knew Serafina, seemed undeniably authentic. Even before I entered the picture, Aurora had been Julian's unwitting shield. I didn't doubt the truth of what she was telling me. My only question was why she was sharing it with me. "Because I fell in love with you at first sight." I stared at her, momentarily speechless. Aurora, who was driving us back, glanced at me, a genuine, warm smile on her face. "Really, I'm not kidding. The moment I saw you, I knew you were special." She explained that she had noticed me long before the teasing started. In previous gatherings, I would quietly sit by myself, not saying much, yet I was surprisingly skilled at the games being played. Both low-key and somehow high-profile. She couldn't quite figure me out, and that mystery had captivated her. "You have character. All those years enduring under Serafina didn't erase your true nature." Her gaze was intense, admiring. "How could I not like you?" From that day forward, Aurora and I spent a lot of time together. We explored Zurich, went on trips, and simply enjoyed each other's company. Daniel, predictably, teased me, saying I'd forgotten my old love now that I had a new one. "Of course," I replied with a grin. "What's there to remember about an ex-wife?" Honestly, after spending a month with Aurora, I could barely recall what Serafina looked like. Her drama, her existence, faded into a distant, irrelevant memory. Good, bad, doesn't matter. Honestly, I hope she's well, not doing great. I said the last part with a deliberately exaggerated flourish, a lingering echo of the pain that was finally receding. Daniel grabbed my neck playfully, pretending to throttle me. "Who was talking about Serafina?" he sputtered, laughing. His old love was clearly himself, my supposedly abandoned best friend. I chuckled, pushing him away. "I'll lavish attention on you later. Today, we're meeting up to feed the pigeons." Daniel flopped onto the sofa, sighing dramatically. The world is cold and harsh. But despite his complaints, he waved goodbye with a genuine smile. He was the one person who wanted my happiness more than anyone. Seeing me build a new life, find genuine connection, allowed him to finally return to his own life in China with a lighter heart. Aurora, with a surprising offer, gave Daniel a job offer at her company and arranged for employee housing. ensuring he wouldn't have to worry about Julian harassing him back home. Daniel's eyes widened when he saw the offer. I didn't know you were a rich kid. Self-made. Thank you. Aurora corrected him with a laugh. This is my company. It struck me as odd that someone who had lived abroad for so long had a significant company back in China, and one powerful enough, seemingly, to evade Serafina's influence. I was surprised but quickly distracted by Aurora, and I didn't bring it up again. Aurora and I spent over a year in Zurich. It was a period of healing and rediscovery. Slowly, certainly, I came to realize that she was the person I wanted to be with. The day I proposed, we stood under a sprig of mistletoe at a Christmas market, the air crisp and festive. To me, I said, looking into her eyes, you are just you. You are unique. I leaned in and kissed her, a kiss not of desperation or substitution, but of genuine affection and quiet hope. Even if forever wasn't guaranteed, I wanted to cherish the happiness of this moment, this connection. Aurora understood my feelings, my past hesitations. She smiled, her eyes sparkling, and promised, then I'll make sure you always feel like I'm keeping things fresh. What an utterly charming woman. About a year and a half after we got together, Aurora and I returned to China. The main reason was her grandmother's 90th birthday celebration. Last year, a severe storm had delayed her flight, making her miss the milestone. This year, for her 90th, she absolutely had to be there in person. She brought me with her. Grandma will be overjoyed when she sees I've finally found a grandson-in-law, she teased, squeezing my hand. I smiled and held her close, determined to make a good impression. I had initially hesitated about going. Aurora had invited me the previous year, before the storm, when I was still putting my guard up with her. It wasn't until Julian showed up in Zurich, looking for her, that my caution began to fully dissipate. That day, I was watering plants at home when a friend I'd met at one of the gatherings sent me a video they had secretly recorded. It was taken from behind some decorative foliage, the people obscured, but Aurora's voice was crystal clear. Arthur, my friend's message read. You wouldn't believe it. The ice queen of the Zurich Chinese community, the beautiful Aurora, is absolutely head over heels for you. That jerk Julian was practically in tears after Aurora tore into him. I've never seen him look so pathetic. Aurora really loves you. In the video, Aurora's voice was firm, cutting through Julian's attempts to speak. Julian, are you determined to make me just like Arthur, a mere plaything in your relationship with Serafina? Stop looking for me. My answer is the same every year. I am not interested in you. Her voice softened slightly, becoming resolute. Besides, I'm getting married. My fiancé is wonderful. Please respect that. I stood frozen, the watering can dripping onto the floor. It took a long time to collect myself and reply to my friend. Thank you. I typed, the word feeling inadequate for the profound relief and certainty that washed over me. The heart that had felt so guarded back, then finally fully opened. But now, returning to China, a new form of anxiety surfaced. What would Aurora's grandmother be like? Making a good impression on my first visit was crucial, especially as a guy meeting the family. As Aurora drove us into the sprawling villa complex, I immediately regretted my anxieties. The place was so opulent, so grand. It felt like somewhere I couldn't afford to even dream about in a dozen lifetimes. My years with Serafina had certainly exposed me to luxurious living, but compared to Aurora's family estate, that was mere child's play. What kind of nice family has front gates made of Wangwali wood? Aurora, oblivious to my silent awe, asked innocently, what's wrong? I pointed to my mouth, choked by the rich air. Looks like I'll be the one living off her wealth. Aurora burst out laughing, a bright, clear sound that chased away some of my nervousness. Don't be nervous, she reassured me, gently squeezing my hand. Lots of extended family will be here today, and most of them haven't been to the main estate often either. Just stick with me, and nobody will dare laugh at you. With her reassurance, I decided to trust her. But I never could have anticipated who I would encounter here, of all places. Aurora had said that only those with connections to the Gura, family would be present. Serafina and Aurora were related? Arthur, you actually came. Serafina stood near the entrance, her face wearing a strained, almost pleading smile. But upon confirming my presence, a flicker of satisfaction, a possessive gleam, entered her eyes. She started to step towards me, reaching out as if to take my hand. I sidestepped smoothly, avoiding her touch. For a fleeting moment, a look of genuine hurt crossed Serafina's face. Arthur, who told you I'd be here? I asked, frowning, stepping further away. I genuinely had no idea what she was talking about. Hearing my confusion, Serafina fell silent, retreating a step. Didn't you come after seeing my message? I was utterly bewildered. Message? What message? Where? Just then, Aurora parked the car and walked over, her steps light. She slipped her arm comfortably through mine, anchoring me. The moment Serafina saw Aurora, her expression twisted. How are you with her? You too. Allow me to introduce you, Aurora said smoothly, resting her head on my shoulder for a brief, affectionate moment, the picture of devoted affection. This is my boyfriend, Arthur. I put my arm around her waist, a comfortable, loving gesture. Aurora beamed at me, then gently guided me away from the entrance and the frozen figure of Serafina. Serafina stood rooted to the spot, unable to follow, staring after us. The birthday banquet was held inside the sprawling estate. We were seated far from Serafina's table. She tried several times to approach me, but the sheer flow of people, the conversations and greetings swirling around. The large hall constantly separated us. Even though it was a family gathering, the He family was vast and influential, with countless branches and their assorted relatives, easily totaling over 100 guests. I felt slightly out of place in the opulent, unfamiliar social setting. Seeing my discomfort, Aurora found a quiet corner for me to take a break. Then Serafina found me. Her voice was low, urgent, almost desperate. Arthur, even if you're angry, you can't be with Aurora. Do you know what kind of person she is? Her eyes darted towards Aurora, who was talking to some relatives nearby. She's in love with Julian. Serafina's voice rose, filled with a desperate need to smear Aurora. I looked at her, this woman who had controlled my life for so long, so frantically trying to paint Aurora as the villain, and a strange, liberating amusement bubbled up inside me. Do you really think, I asked softly, fixing her with a steady gaze, that I'm still the same person I was when I was with you? Someone who would fall for someone without knowing anything about them. Serafina opened her mouth to argue, but I raised my hand, stopping her words. Whatever you're going to say, I can probably guess. My voice hardened slightly, losing its earlier softness. But what does it have to do with you? This is my life now. I endured your 9 divorces and remarriages. Did you really, truly, naively believe I would put up with it forever? The absurdity of it all struck me. I've already been married 9 times by the time I'm this young. You have to let me try something new, right? My tone was light, almost joking, but the words carried the weight of years of pain and final liberation. Serafina's expression shifted dramatically with each sentence I spoke, moving from desperation to shock, then something akin to disbelief. Finally, a bitter, hollow laugh escaped her. Aurora, she called out, raising her voice slightly, ensuring Aurora, who had just rejoined us, could hear. Did you hear that? He just wants to have some fun with you. She turned back to me, her face a mask of cold dismissal, addressing Aurora through me. You are of noble standing. Please let him go. I was momentarily taken aback, watching Aurora walk calmly towards us. She held a small piece of cake, which she gently placed in my hand, before turning to face Serafina directly. Yes, Aurora replied calmly, her voice steady and warm. But I am perfectly willing to be played with by him. She wrapped her arm around mine, her gaze fixed on me, filled with an open, tender affection that needed no words. Grandma wants to see you, Arthur. Shall we go now? I nodded, my heart full. We turned and walked away, leaving Serafina standing alone. As Serafina watched our backs, her eyes finally fell, concealing the sadness that briefly surfaced. She knew, with chilling certainty, that the words I spoke were true. And she knew, with equal certainty, that Aurora's words to me were genuine. There were no secrets, no hidden motives, no white moonlights or substitutes between Aurora and me. We saw each other for who we were. After our talk with Grandma, we said our goodbyes. We didn't return to Zurich immediately after that. Aurora took charge of the He family's business interests in China, becoming incredibly busy. She explained that her extended stay abroad was because she had been deliberately sent away by the family, out of sight, out of mind, due to her prolonged refusal to marry the suitors they presented. Now that I was by her side, someone she genuinely wanted to marry, she could finally return home and take her rightful place in the family business. I looked at her, slightly stunned. Wait, I asked, a hint of humor in my voice. Are you just using me as a tool to inherit the family fortune? The question genuinely startled Aurora. She immediately refused Grandma's renewed attempts to rush our marriage. As a result, she was sent back abroad that very night, while I remained in China to keep Grandma company. "Let that girl have her fun abroad," Grandma said, a twinkle in her eye, patting my hand. "Arthur, you stay and keep me company." It was then I truly understood. Aurora's initial reason for being abroad was to expand the family's market share overseas. She had fabricated the story about being sent away only because she wanted a plausible excuse to stay in China with me. I looked at the kind, sharp-eyed old woman and smiled. "Okay, Grandma," I said. Later, I saw Serafina a few more times at various functions. Even though we weren't married, I was now widely known throughout the city as the prospective son-in-law of the powerful He family, a status completely opposite to my years married to her. Another year, another family banquet. I stood on the balcony, looking down at the grand hall. Serafina stood alone near a wall, a solitary figure in the crowd. The glory of her past seemed diminished, leaving only a quiet loneliness. Aurora walked over, smiling as she joined me. "Don't stand here, it's cold at night. What if you catch a cold?" I adjusted my jacket, turning back towards the warmth of the room. All right, I said, leaning into her slightly. "You're truly the best wife. Always looking out for your husband." Outside the window, the first snowflakes of early winter began to fall, landing softly on Serafina's shoulder as she finally left the banquet hall, a lone figure walking away into the night. But on my shoulder, the snow would not fall alone. The end,